Hi there everyone. Today we're going to be talking about emotions and how to name those emotions. We are going to be thinking about the importance of sharing how we're feeling and how we are using the right kind of vocabulary. So let's think. You may have seen this film. It's called Inside Out, and it's about a little girl who has lots of experiences in her life, and her emotions take over, but she's not very good at sharing that. She keeps them all inside, and then things all go wrong for her. It's a very good film about how different feelings can actually take over. Let's start with thinking about how we read faces and how we show emotion. Now, if I said to you, how do you feel today? You might say, okay, or I'm feeling fine, or I'm feeling happy. And you might show that on your face. But for some people, it's really difficult to read faces. I want you to pause the video for a second and have a look at all the faces that this man is pulling. Can we tell exactly how he's feeling from his face? Is it easy to do, or is it a bit harder? Just pause the video. Okay, let's have a look at this picture here. With this picture, is it obvious how he's feeling? What did you think he was feeling? Well, I think he looks like he might just be about to burst into song, excited. But he also might he might be showing that he feels fear. He might look like he's just about to scream in pain because he's trodden on a Lego brick. It's quite tricky, that one, isn't it? So we could say he looks like he's having a great time or he's having a terrible time. What about this one? This one's a little bit easier. He's using his hands to help. His hands are showing that he's pushing something away or frightened of something. That face, I think, is easier to read. This face here is quite straightforward too. He's got a big, broad smile on his face. He looks like he's happy. He could be cheerful, happy. He could be seeing somebody in front of him that he really loves. He could just be about to do something he really wants to do. He could just have woken up with a really happy feeling. His emotions in that photo are quite straightforward. But can you see in this one, what do we think about that? His hands are up by his head. What is he going to do? Is he looking worried, frightened, frustrated? He looks like he's just about to say, oh no. Can you see? But it's a bit more complicated. It's hard to put a really straightforward emotion vocabulary with that one. What about this one? In this one, he looks like he might be quite angry. Okay? But we're not sure. And we can never know until that person says how they're feeling. This is very straightforward. This is probably the most straightforward, and so is this one. This one also is what we call ambiguous. Ambiguous means it's got more than one. We're not sure. He could be, he looks pretty annoyed, like he's going to be really angry. He also looks sort of frustrated. He could look distrusting, like he doesn't quite believe what he's hearing. It is much harder than we think to give names to expressions on faces. Some faces we pull may have different meanings. I might look like this. And I might be thinking, what are you up to? Or I might be thinking, that's naughty. It might be a general displeasure, but you can't be sure. And some people find it really hard to read faces. It's a good thing to do is just to have a look and see. Stand in front of the mirror and pull some different faces. See if you can tell what those faces expression you're trying to give. It's quite tricky, but it's good fun as well. And actually, it'll make loads of people laugh if you start pulling faces in the mirror in front of people. Let's look at this poster. This is a poster that we used to have in our house to try and get us to think about the faces that we pull. But we know it's much more complicated than this. But it's quite nice to have the vocabulary Those are the words to use to explain how that we're feeling and the faces we're pulling. Being proud of something, really pleased. Being a sad or happy. These are all emotions that you can have in any one day, and to use the right vocabulary will really help with it. Let's look at this. This is a range of emotions, and these cartoons reminded me a little bit of Mrs. P's artwork. I want to just say to you, it's okay not to know how you feel. Sometimes it's really hard to put vocabulary with the feeling, but it's quite nice to look at the shapes of the faces and the eyes. And the reason I've got this slide is for you to think about, when you're drawing faces also, how you can give an expression and show how somebody might be feeling. And I say might because we've already said sometimes faces are very difficult to read. Let's have a look. When somebody looks cross, we tend to have our what's called pursed lips. Can you see? The lips are closed. When we're happy, we tend to have a big smile, what I call an ear-to-ear smile, depending on how happy we are. Try and do an ear-to-ear smile. You're not really doing it ear-to-ear, but the smile is a really big, makes the whole of our face smile. Sometimes we can smile. It makes a big difference if our whole face is smiling. And you can see the shape of the face changes. These are things that we can practice a little bit and look for. If we can do them for ourselves, we might start recognizing them in other people, and that might be a little bit easier. Let's have a look. This one is a proud smile. When we're proud, our body changes and moves. So listen carefully. You might look at this and say, these are different feelings and different emotions, and these are good words that might help us. Love, lonely, proud, happy, scared. Do you think they're better than saying, okay, fine? It might be a good thing to do, to try and use different vocabulary. And this is the main focus of today's lesson, is to think about the vocabulary that we use to describe how we're feeling. I've done this slide for you, and I want it's on Google Classroom, and if you want to have a go, it's a really good thing to do. It's just to try drawing some different expressions and see if you can match an expression with the vocabulary that it's explaining. This is harder than it looks. I don't think it's easy, but it can be good fun to have a go, and it will help you think about the mouth shape. Through the day, you might have very different feelings. You might feel happy and exuberant and want to run about and jump. And then on another occasion in the day, or even the next day, you might feel a little bit flat, or that feel you just want to hide in the cushions. That's fine too. All of these emotions are good to have. But having the words to explain them can help with other people understanding how you're feeling, giving you some space and time if you need it, or giving you some help, a bit of a cuddle if you need it. Also, you need to think about if you're using expressions and you can't exactly explain how you're feeling, having a bit of time to yourself. So we go back to our mindfulness and our doodling, where we can just focus in on one thing really carefully. People who study feelings and behaviour and emotions have got a special name. They're called psychologists, and they have studied how different feelings feel in different parts of our bodies. That's a funny thing, but I think you'll know what I mean, because sometimes, do you ever get that funny feeling in your tummy when you're worried about something? You're not quite sure why, but it gives you a tummy ache, and that is because your emotions your brain is telling your body to give yourself tummy ache, because your emotions are taking over. Sometimes emotions can be in our heads, our legs, our tummies, our necks. They come out in all kinds of ways, which is why it's really important to understand them. Let's just have a look. There are some different emotions here, and you might have felt these, or you might not. It's not a competition. It doesn't matter if you haven't. When we're surprised, and that surprise can be a good surprise or a bad surprise, psychologists have found that you have the feelings come in your chest, your top part of your chest, in your head, and in your neck and shoulders, but not in your legs. If you're feeling worried about something, you get that feeling from your tummy, the lower part of your tummy, what's called your pelvis, a bit lower down. And that feeling comes right up your body, but it isn't in your arms at all. If you feel love towards something, you're attracted to something, or you have that kind of, if you like, what I call the ooshy feeling. For example, if you see a puppy or a kitten or a little creature that you love, your animal, let's say, you have that feeling all over your body. That love comes everywhere. Arms, legs, fingers, face, everywhere. But if you're feeling a bit low, a little bit flat, what we might call something called depression, you don't really have a feeling. The feeling isn't there. If you've got hatred for something, it's called contempt, the head and hands get very hot and the feeling comes in the hands, but you don't have any feeling across your tummy or in your legs. This is interesting. If you're proud of something, let's just think for a moment where you've been proud. You've achieved something well. You've got a golden certificate, or you've been star of the week. Your whole body changes. You'll know. Your body changes, your shoulders go back, your head goes up, and the feeling is all in across your chest, down your arms, and in your top half, in your head. That's one that I think we've all felt when we're really proud of ourselves and pleased. Even our body shape changes, and our body, we sit up straight more. But the opposite is true if you're feeling shameful, if you're ashamed of something you've done, maybe you've done something bad. It can all be forgiven, but sometimes you feel, what happens is you get your head goes down and you feel yourself go red, you're embarrassed usually, and you have all that feeling is in the top half, but down the middle of your body, but not in your bottom half, not in your legs or your tummy. If you're jealous of something, it's the same sort of feeling. It comes in your head and your neck, and you can feel hot and red, and then you look in the mirror and you're not red at all. It's that feeling that you get. These are really good to understand, and they help us think about the different feelings that we have during the day or over a period of time. Let's have a look at these. You might recognise these if you've seen the film Inside Out. If you haven't, it doesn't matter. These are common feelings: fear, anger, sadness, disgust, and joy. Can you think of a time when you felt these? Let's have a little think a minute. Pause the video and think about when you felt really sad or really angry, or you've been frightened of something, or happy, or disgusted. The disgusted one is usually to do with something you don't like food or feeling unwell. Okay? Now, I want to say something about this. These emotions are perfectly normal. There is nothing wrong with feeling any of these. The most important thing is that those feelings you're able to share. Feelings or emotions, things go wrong when people they let them overtake them and they don't actually share them. Actually, some of these emotions really help us. For example, fear. If we didn't have fear, we would be in all kinds of trouble. So, for example, if you are on the road walking along the pavement, the important thing is to have fear of cars and traffic so that we don't just walk in front of them and get hurt. Also, the fear of danger is a really good fear to have. It stops us doing dangerous and stupid things that might hurt us. Also, anger. Anger can help us. As long as it doesn't stop us from doing things or make us go too far, anger can really help us in terms of moving forward with something. So I get really cross sometimes when I watch the news, and that makes me think of different ways to solve the problem. Sadness is also something that is hard, but it does need to happen sometimes. All of our emotions need to be in balance. If one is taking over more than the other, then that probably needs to be shared with someone. And that's really, really important. Disgust is something that stops us eating bad things or making us ill, that makes us ill. So it's a useful thing to have. It's all of these emotions help us be human beings. And finally, joy. Joy is the one that we probably think is the best. And in a way, joy and sadness go together, because without sadness, we wouldn't see joy for what it is, which brings the most pleasure to all of us. Okay? It's really important. I want you just to stop for a moment and think of a time when you were really joyful. By joyful, I mean happy. So if something has happened you've enjoyed, that has given you that smiley feeling. Just close your eyes and think about that for the moment and see if it makes you smile. I'm sure it will. Not knowing what emotions you're feeling is absolutely fine, but sometimes it's because we don't have the words for them. We're going to make an emotion map today, and that is going to help us build our vocabulary to help us understand our feelings. We're going to use our emotion maps to help us work out how feelings are. Okay, and we're going back to my special book, my Unworry book, which is such a good book for helping us think about our learning in PSE. Let's have a look at these. We've talked about 5 emotions so far: anger, disgust, fear, joy, and sadness. And basically, emotions come from these. There are a whole range of other emotions that psychologists use to talk about different emotions we feel. We have sadness, and that can be grief when somebody dies or something bad happens. Okay? We've also got disgust. That can turn into loathing, where you really, really are disgusted by something to so much you can't be in the same room as it. Yeah? And then we've got something, annoyance. This is a good one. Sometimes we can be a little bit annoyed by something, and sometimes that turns into anger. The most extreme form of that is rage, when you're in a fury. And you've seen that perhaps with a toddler who has a little tantrum, and that rage comes, and that's because they haven't learned how to modify their anger. So they're frustrated, and that turns into real rage. It passes after a few minutes. The issue is that if people become angry so much that they can't manage their anger, and that's when we need to have help with those things. And the same with fear. It's really important to be fearful of things, because, as I said before, we can be fearful of things and that can save our lives. But if we have a huge terror of things so much that we can't do things, we can't go out, then that's not a good thing. But also, it's good to have a little bit of what we call apprehension, worry about something that's dangerous so that we don't make silly mistakes. It's really important to start using the vocabulary here, because it will help us show our emotions and explain our emotions and get help when we need it. I've got a lot of vocabulary here. All of these activities are on Google Classroom, or you can stop the video and jot some of them down. What's important is we widen our vocabulary so that we've got the right words to explain our feelings. And that's what this is for. I've got little signposts here which you can use. You can draw little signposts and you can start filling them in, how you're feeling. I might feel confused, and that confusion might lead to stress, or it might lead to worry or upset. Do you see? I can be quiet, but I can also feel I'm quiet because I'm feeling jealous. These are perfectly normal emotions, but it's quite nice to draw yourself some little signposts and think about how you're feeling. I've included the vocabulary on Google Classroom because it will help you when you come to your emotions map, which we're going to come on to. So, emotions map. Sometimes it's really helpful just to try and put your finger on how you're feeling, but you might be struggling to name your feeling. So it's good to have what we call a wander through an emotions map. And this is a sort of a good way of doing it for our age group, your children, because it can make us think about how through the day we might have different feelings. You might draw out an emotions map And then over a period of time, days or weeks, have a look at it every so often and go, how am I feeling today? Let's go through the map and see. And that's really good because you can start to name that emotion. You can come back to this again and again and you show what you're feeling. And if it's not here, you can always add the words when you find out them. If you look at this one, there are lots of little signposts that haven't been filled in. Those because you can always add new vocabulary as you learn it. This is a good way of being emotionally aware. That means you're starting to think about how you're feeling and how is that shown to other people. That's what we're working on today. So you can make your emotions map like this. You can draw a picture. This is a little car. This is like you traveling through the day. And you could put in all the different kinds of words that you might have. You can lay them on your map, write them on, and add to them as you get there. And then you might put on your signpost and describe how you're feeling today. So that's quite a nice way of doing it. You draw your map, you add the words, and then you draw some signposts that are blank and you add in your words as you go along. That's one way of doing it, which is quite nice. I've done emotions map here, and this all links up with how you might be feeling and where you might need some help. And I was drawing emotions. I got my emotions map, and then I thought, how would I put into words how I was feeling? And I was thinking, this happened to me the other day. I was disappointed because I'd hoped I'd been able to meet my friend, and then I couldn't. And I thought she might forget me, and then we wouldn't see each other anymore and we wouldn't be friends. And then I thought, hold on a minute, that's not right. But it's good to write it down. So I wrote it down like this. And then I thought, oh, I could put that in my worry monster. And somebody could see that and help me sort it out. And then I thought, now I'm cheerful because I'm having a Zoom with that very same friend. And it means that I can chat to her and I can talk to her how I was worried about it. Do you see? And this is where words turn into actions. By thinking of the words, rather than going, yeah, I'm all right, I could say, no, I'm disappointed. And I've got several emotions there. I'm disappointed because I hoped I'd be able to meet my friends and I was worried that they'd forget me. Do you see? I've used 3 different vocabulary words there to explain my emotions and how I was feeling. And now I'm cheerful because I'm having a Zoom with my friend. Do you see? And this is how emotions maps can really help us. I've put a vocabulary sheet on a Google Classroom for you, which you can use, or you can pause the video and jot some of these words down to help you. And then you can lay it out on a map. This is one map that I've got, a background. And again, I've included this background if you want it, but you draw your own. I think it'll be much better. And I've listed a lot of words, but I've left lots of space to add new words. So let's see what we're going to do. What I would like you to come up with is to use your own, make your own emotions map. Decorate your emotions map how you want. You can make it a journey like my first map, or some mountains or streams. You add whatever you want and spend time doing that, because that again will be a mindful thing to do, drawing your map. Come back to your map, add the vocabulary. You can use the sheet or find the place on the video, and try and go through it every so often and think about how you're feeling. And then look to see if you can say, instead of saying I'm fine or I'm okay or I'm sad, is think of other vocabulary that is more accurate to how you're feeling. The other thing you can do is, we mentioned before, was the emotions faces. That's a good fun activity to do. But the other thing you can do, if you don't want to print off, is look at people's faces in magazines, televisions and films, and see if you can see how they're feeling. See if you can start to be more aware of how different faces can convey different emotions, and also how difficult it can be. So it's important to start being a bit more aware of that. Also, I recommend to you that if you haven't seen it already, that you watch Inside Out. It's a great film. I know that lots of you have Disney Plus and it's there, definitely on there, but there are other ways of accessing it. It's a great film for showing how feelings can take over and affect us, and how important it is to talk about our emotions and not bottle them up like Riley in the film. I've also included on Google Classroom this document here, which is the one we looked at earlier, with all the other vocabulary. And it also is quite nice because it puts them in colours, how you can think about emotions in terms of colours. The most important thing is that you start to think about the vocabulary you use and start showing your emotions by using vocabulary and explaining how you're feeling. Okay? Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.